What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Vitamin Lead, your healthy dose of leadership. I'm your host, TJ Reed, and I am excited today to have our new friend, Paul Casey, with us. Paul, thank you for being on Vitamin Lead.
It is an honor to be with you, TJ.
So, Paul, we've heard a little bit about your bio, but why don't you tell us about yourself? And while you're at it, would you tell our listeners about your bald eagle puppet, Eli, that makes kids smile?
He's sleeping right now. Yeah, so I was my career started out as a fifth grade teacher. And so I did that for a couple of years, then got my principal saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, which was leadership. And I didn't know that's what it was, then. And he said, I'd like you to be my vice principal. So just after 2 years of teaching, he promoted me to vice principal for half the day. And I got to be a PE teacher for half the day. And I went to a conference where they were selling these puppets. And so I walked up to the booth, I'm like, I don't know if I could be a ventriloquist. And they're like, no, it's cool. The puppet whispers in your ear and then you tell the kids, what he said. And I'm like, really? That goes over well? And they said, yeah. And this puppet is so cool. There's a heart that can pull out of its chest, and you can put an object in there, like a candy bar or a paper clip or something. And then you can tell a story, because whatever the puppet is thinking about is going to come out his mouth eventually. And so it could be a negative thing or a positive thing. And that was the lesson that I would teach, is like, what is the puppet thinking about? And so Eli the Eagle was his name.
That's
and
cool.
And so I brought that as my mascot when I became an elementary principal then a few years later. Then my journey went on. I became a family pastor at a church because they needed some help with parenting skills for the children and youth departments. And I didn't work with the kids. I actually worked with the families and did CDs and events and e-newsletters, that was all just becoming, hot at that time. So that was fun to be able to play in that space. Became an executive pastor at a church, and then started my own business as an entrepreneur in 2012 while I had the day job. And then in 2015, I took the plunge. Income goes to zero as an entrepreneur. Woohoo! And
Fun, yay!
and off to the races. And struggled through year one a bit. Just networked the heck out of my town here. I'm in Eastern Washington State, and within a year, was able to quit the two little part-time jobs just to get me through that first year, and haven't looked back since. And so I do coaching and team building and training, offsite retreats, mastermind groups. I've got a local podcast. I've written 4 little books. So yeah, anything that helps people grow is what I do. And my business is called Growing Forward Services.
That's awesome. I love when we were talking before, you said that you went to one of the education conferences and you just didn't get out of it anything other than the theoretical. And so you just kind of have this passion for the practical. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was at this conference, my first year as a teacher, like, whoa, huge convention center. It was in Anaheim, California. And I was like, this is great. And I signed up for all these courses, but it was all philosophical. And I went, man, I didn't get any ideas from my classroom, which is what I really wanted. And I felt like God said, like, well, then you do it. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I decided to sign up to do a seminar. It was terrifying the first time, but 35 people showed up that next year. And then from then on, every year I put my name in the booklet and people would come. And then it became like 3 regions, 4 regions, 8 regions, different conferences. And it's been a blast. So I've been doing it since I was 23 years old, and I get a lot of thrill of giving people practical ideas.
Love it. So one of our favorite questions here is, we have a lot of people that are younger in their career, like just starting out or just becoming leaders. And so one of our favorite questions to ask people is, would you tell us about one of your first jobs and a lesson that you learned in that job that has maybe carried you through, that's carried through to present day?
Yeah, one of my first jobs was at a UPS shipping place, and it was agonizingly slow. But then when someone would come in, it would be like, you have to know a million things, of the different carriers like FedEx and how to wrap it properly. And so it was like boring, and then just this burst of adrenaline and freak out mode. And I realized that was not the job that I needed, because I have to be like fully engaged. in a job, something that my heart goes toward. And I also have to feel like I feel like I have to have some mastery of that job, or at least being able to get towards mastery. And if I have either one of those things where I'm losing interest or I don't feel like I'm good at it, it's not going to go very far. So that's the lesson I learned from that.
So let's say one of our listeners is in that realm right now. What would you suggest? Like, because as you're starting out in your career, sometimes you take a job, you're like, oh man, like I wasn't anticipating this, or this is rougher. What are like some practical steps they can take to head more towards their purpose or their passion? Like what maybe something you've learned?
Yeah, well, I would definitely get a coach. I mean, it doesn't have to be me, but there are a lot of great coaches out there who specialize in helping you find out what you're good at, what you want, what your passions are, what your strengths. You don't have to hire a coach. You can actually take many of these assessments online for free or just for nominal cost. But I would really explore, like, who are you as a person? I'll give my clients a personality evaluation, a strengths finder assessment, like a passion test, like what are you passionate about, your love language, the things that fill your tank and drain your tank. When you do all these different little assessments, it gives you like a composite on yourself, so that when you do look for that job that does fit more your sweet spot, it's like, yeah, that is totally me, or nope, I'm not going to go through that again.
Yeah, those are important jobs to know, as the ones that, nope, never going to go back and do that again. Oh man, okay, that's good. So you study time management. What
Yeah.
made you study time management, and what makes you want to like spread that message to the world?
Well, I think my mom was the ultimate time manager, but she's a teacher. And I would say kudos to all the educators out there, because you've got to manage a clock when you're a teacher. I mean, you've got PE and recess and each subject that you have to get in. You've got a curriculum to get in before the end of the year, and you've got to break that into chunks. And I think that just wired it into my blood to be a time manager. I wandered into my principal's office, that guy that had promoted me, and his office looked like a bomb had hit it. I mean, there's just piles everywhere, and that was his style. And if you're a piles person out there, you know, I'm not dissing you. You probably know where everything is in those piles. But to me, that makes me a little nauseous. That's just my style.
Yeah,
So I
me
said,
too. Me too.
Can I organize this? And he said, like, go ahead, take a crack at it. So he went on a trip, and I made all of his piles all neatly. Like, these are the memos, when in the days where there were memos, and reading material, and order forms and things that he had to sign off on. And I came back and it was like, oh, here it is, all for you. He said, this is amazing. Of course, I went back to the old ways within weeks, because you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But there was a publication there called The Organized Executive. And I think it may still exist. I don't know if it does or not. It's all these time management hacks. And this was back in the early 90s. And I just really got a thrill from saying, how can I be more efficient? How can I take something to the next level with a little time hack? And it just became, I started adding more and more habits to my schedule, my daily habits. And it became something that I wanted to share with others. And people seemed interested, like, yeah, my day's getting away from me. And people are lamenting that I can't get to my priorities. And I'm a procrastinator. And I thought, there's a niche here where I think I could jump into that and maybe give some real practical tools.
That's really good. I'm gonna give you an abstract question about time management here. If time were an animal, what animal would you describe time as?
Oh my goodness, that is the most unique question I've been asked on a podcast.
Is that a way of saying it's a bad question? It's the most unique question I've been asked on a podcast.
You're making me go to the other side of my brain right now. Time management or an animal? Because I would think maybe it would have to be some type of methodical animal that is very intentional with its hunting patterns, its feeding patterns, and its mating patterns, and all those other things. I don't know which one that would be though, but at least you're having me starting to think about that.
Okay, well, that's good. If it comes to you sometime, just yell out an animal name as we go along in the podcast. My wife and I joke a lot about our different personality types. She sets a plan and she feels like with her schedule, if she breaks it, she's kind of like, it's like a violation to her personal code of
Yes.
ethics.
Yes.
For me and my brainstem, I'm a little bit opposite. I need to know that I have freedom and that I can break those plans whenever necessary. So I guess the question I'm getting at is, how do you approach different personalities with time management?
Yeah.
Are there similar strategies for different personalities?
That's really good. And I do teach the animal personality style. So I should have had a better answer for you because I teach the lion, otter, golden retriever, beaver styles. Have you ever taken that one before?
I haven't. I honestly don't remember what I was.
Okay. So the lion is the bold, direct, get her done, action oriented, driven kind of leader. The otter is the open-ended, creative, spontaneous. That might be you, what you were describing, but playful, loves the start of things, loves people. The golden retriever is the calm listener, conscientious pleaser kind of a person. And then the beaver, which is probably the animal that I should have said earlier, is the productive,
Hmm.
organized, planned, structured, color coded, alphabetized kind of person, probably like your wife, who is, just needs to stay on track or else they get a little rattled.
Yeah. So which one are you, Paul?
So I am Beaver Golden Retriever.
Okay.
So very, very structured and time managed on that side, high task, but also high people. I love to listen in my coaching to my coaching clients. So I'm not dominating the conversation there. I'm usually listening 80% of the time. I don't ever jump down somebody's throat, in a conflict. I stay pretty even keeled. But I do have, we're a combination of all the four. So as an entrepreneur, I got to be a lot more lion than I normally was in
Hmm.
a day job, because I got to make money and I have to nurture new contacts and keep things going. I like comedians, so I like the otter style. I like to laugh, and I do like to create. So I do have that side of my brain going too. But
Hmm.
I married an otter, and so she's the one that keeps my life more spontaneous, and I'm the one that sort of grounds her.
You need both of them. I found that since our daughter came into the world, I have a 3-year-old, that my wife's beaver tendencies are so helpful for building routines that my daughter absolutely loves that I'd probably just feed her Kool-Aid and let her stay up till 10 o'clock at night if it was my decision. But uh, she's
Dad is
grown me
great.
quite a bit in that way.
Dad is great. He gives us chocolate cake. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a model for restoring sanity to our schedules. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. It's the fulcrum framework of focus. Okay, so that's a lot of F words there. They're all positive F words. So I heard that I needed a framework if I was going to try to come up with something for an online video course. So I hired someone that would help me with this. And so she said, okay, so what's some of the teaching that you really want to get across for these people who don't have sanity? I call my program Restoring Sanity because people are feeling so out of control. I
Yeah.
listened to a speaker years ago who was totally burned out. He learned some lessons from being burned out. And he said it's work-life balance is not a real thing. Maybe work-life integration is a better phrase, or work-life rhythm. But he said, I want you to picture a teeter-totter. And he's like, those are probably illegal nowadays, because all the playground equipment is now, like deemed unsafe for our children. But the teeter-totter, where you've got to put work on one side, life on the other. And so if you're trying to balance it, even if you get there, you're off balance like 5 minutes later. So that's really not a worthy goal. But he said, picture the fulcrum, that triangle that's in between. He said, if you can push the fulcrum back or forth, maybe we're to work side if there's a big deadline or a client you need to really please, or maybe your parent goes into assisted living, or your child has the flu, you've got to push it to the other side, and you just move that fulcrum fluidly. That's where that the model comes from.
I love that. I love that. And so you move it where it's needed for that season of life, basically.
Yeah, and you can't leave it for too long because obviously, you're going to have clients mad. You're going to lose business if you don't go enough to one side, but you're also going to lose your family if you don't give them the attention, the
Yeah.
nurturing that they need. So yeah, you can't leave it for too long, but you can for seasons.
Is it possible for us to do all the things that we expect ourselves to have to do? Because I know, like, I talked to so many folks, so many of the younger team members on our team, and they're like, well, I do this, and then I also have my side hustle over here, and all of these sorts of things. And I think that maybe some of the frustration is that we're trying to pack so much in and burning the candle at both ends. Like, what are some ways that somebody can maybe unclutter their life or make decisions on what's important?
Yeah, that's really good. And two of the styles, the lion and the beaver styles, those they just keep saying yes to everything. They just keep taking more on their plate. Rawr, give me
Yeah.
more. They never say the word overwhelmed. Where the golden retrievers and the otters, they know that they've got a capacity level that if they keep saying yes, they're going to go underground really fast.
Hmm.
So it is important to know your personality style. The second thing I would say is you've got to know what you want most in life. What are the most important things to you? You've got to filter your life based around your values and your vision. That's the first point I usually say. A lot of people want to say, yeah, let's get on to the time management hacks. And I'm like, no. We need to hover here for a while, because what is most important for you at the end of your life, even at the end of this year? Would you say, like, I have regrets that I didn't do that? Well, let's get
Hmm.
ahead of that now. Let's put those big rocks into your schedule now and decide, like, maybe those other things are nice to do's, but they're not as important as those main priorities for you. Then you decide to use that as a filter. You protect your priorities. You learn to say no. You put boundaries around stuff. And like you said, to start the question, sometimes we just put too much on our plate, and we need to be setting attainable goals.
That's good. Why do you think it's so hard for us to sustain time management changes in our schedule? Why do we often revert back to unhelpful patterns in our scheduling and time management?
TJ, it's self-discipline. And that,
Hmm.
I just, had someone in my last seminar, he goes, Paul, all this time management stuff you're teaching, doesn't it just really come down to self-discipline? And I just chuckled, and because everybody laughed in the room, and it's like, yep, that is really true. And I can't put that into somebody. I mean, all I can do is try to rouse up within you your big why. Like, what the big why for managing your time has to be bigger than your procrastination tendencies.
Hmm.
And usually that it doesn't reach that level. So then we drag on our Outlook or our Google Calendar, we drag things into the afternoon, or we just check off the things that are easiest because we get a rush of dopamine whenever we cross that off. But
Yeah.
the why isn't big enough. So then we just go back to what's easy and convenient.
Hmm. So are we bored? Is that why we are not good time managers? We just made ourselves bored with an easy life?
I don't think we're bored, but I think it takes work and it takes intentionality to go after something bigger than yourself, bigger than
Hmm.
what's just in your. I'm not gonna say everybody has a humdrum life, but there is this sort of maintaining life, and then there is this bust out kind of life. Like, I want to impact thousands and thousands of lives. I mean, that's me personally.
Yeah.
Maybe you just want to be the best parent or spouse that you can be. Well, you don't default to being a great parent or a great boss or a great employee or a great entrepreneur, right? So it takes intentionality. So I don't think it's boredom. I just think we just sort of get comfortable.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I know that the times where I'm intentionally setting down my cell phone are the times where I connect with my daughter, and uh, it's so easy to just sit there and be on autopilot for those things instead of
Mhm.
actually
Sure.
interacting and living into my values.
Sure.
Hmm. So you're a parent. What are some of the ways you've been able to live into your values with your time management and in your life throughout your career, especially as you've traveled speaking and things like that?
Yeah, I definitely have to block my time. That would be one of the biggest time hacks that I could give anybody, is to make what one speaker calls FBOTs, focused blocks of time.
Hmm.
I call it making appointments with yourself or with those people closest to you, and you literally block it out. Whether you're at work, you block out your priorities there. If you're at home, you block out date night. So I always block out date night with my wife on Friday nights. And that's sacred time. You know, there might be a time where I'm traveling, but even then I just move it somewhere else in the week. So my wife doesn't get the shaft on that. So time with playing with children, like tonight I'm going to go out to Target with my daughter. She's a teenager. And so our dates are going to Target. We're going out for frozen yogurt. And so I've got to literally put those in my calendar and treat them as sacred time that can't get bumped.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. One more question for you, and then I want to talk about the free offer that you have for our listeners here. Our tagline for Vitamin Lead is your healthy dose of leadership. And so my question to you is, can you define healthy leadership? What's your definition of healthy leadership?
Wow, healthy leadership. There's a book called The Advantage. It would be a book to recommend for any of your listeners for the new year, for sure. In that book, Patrick Lencioni says it is a leader's job to create a healthy atmosphere or environment for its people to thrive. And I thought, wow, I have never heard it said like that, but I totally agree with that. You have to create such a safe atmosphere where people can speak up, where people have a personal development plan, that the leaders are trying to help them get to that. There has to be balance in one's own life so that you don't become a workaholic. So there's a whole bunch of elements that go into healthy leadership, but I would definitely say that. And if you put me on the spot, TJ, I would say the two most important leadership traits out of all of them would be relationship building and vision. If you have those two, I really believe your people will follow you anywhere because they want to know if you care about them and they want to know where you're taking them.
Absolutely. I love it. That's so good, Paul. Thank you. I believe you were telling me that you have a special offer for our listeners. Will you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. If you want to get a handle on your time management with some simple steps to get started, and then hopefully work on each one of those to become a habit, I've got a control my calendar checklist for you, the listeners. What you do is you go to the website, takebackmycalendar.com, takebackmycalendar.com, or if you're a texter, you can text the word growing to 72,000. So that's open a text to 72000 and just text the word growing, and you'll get on that list and get that free gift.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure to put that in our show notes so that they can click on that as well if they're on their cell phone or something like that. So that's wonderful. Well, Paul, thank you so much for sharing your time management. Thank you for sharing the story of the beaver as well as the example of time. We're grateful that you were here with us tonight.
It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, you've been listening to Vitamin Lead, your healthy dose of leadership, and this has been Paul Casey. We will talk with you all soon.